Oh dear. Huh. That sounds like the ventilator's a bit off. Shame. It sent a lovely whiff of joy into the air. Terribly sorry about the telly in there. People keep stepping on the cable. Oh. We're back again. Hello there. You must be the winner of the Uncle Jack Fan Club's Get to Know Jack contest. At least I hope you are, or the bobbies at the front door have been very sloppy indeed. As you know, I'm Uncle Jack, and I'm always happy to meet my fans, especially if they can help me. Over on your right, you'll see the news feeding machine. That's how you feed me the news stories I'm supposed to read. To your right. Your right. You'll see 3 news stories to choose from. Do try to give me a happy one, won't you? Sometimes the writers get a little mischievous. You can only feed me news after I finish reading the preview story. The machine will light up to tell you when to send me more. Isn't technology wonderful? You'll have to wait for me to finish the story I'm reading before you send me another one. You wouldn't want me to get muddled, would you? No, of course not. Just press the send button below the news story you want and whoosh, it will magically appear on my teleprompter. Be sure to hit the send button, otherwise I won't get the news story. Oh dear, you didn't send me any news stories. Please send news, or I shall have to do magic tricks, and I don't know any. On in 5, 4, 3...
And now it's time for the Good News Hour with Uncle Jack. Hey, that's me, Jack Worthing. I'll give you all the news you need to start your afternoon with a smile. The village of Hamlin prides itself on its lack of rats. Oh, yes, indeed. And not only do we not have any rats, we do have V-meat. Not that there's any, well, connection between the two. I don't know why I thought of V-meat. Next card. Ah, my producer's learning. Here's a funny story. Harry Hayworth, Wellington Wells' most famous scientist and the inventor of joy, appears to have gone on a walkabout. Mr. Hayworth's colleagues last saw him on Monday and are concerned that he may be lost. According to some of them, Harry has gone a bit fuzzy in recent years. Well, haven't we all? When last seen, Dr. Hayworth was nattily dressed as he was on his way to a meeting with General Byng. No doubt he's just enjoying a little peace and quiet. However, if you do see him, please do let a constable know. Next card. We don't know who thought it would be amusing, but some of the village compliment machines have been offering rather backhanded praise. A citizen heard one say, "You look well for your age," and "What a creative hairdo." The executive committee has ordered a full inspection of village compliment machines. Should you encounter a cheeky compliment machine, kindly turn it off using the large red button and then report it to the nearest police constable. And don't worry, darling. You really do look marvelous. Next card, please. News item. I hope you didn't miss the excitement at Simon Says this week. Our weekly competition was, well, it was just reaching fever pitch when alert Hamiltonians noted a squad of wastrels from over the bridge attempting to burgle a house. Yeah, well, the hue and cry went up and the entire village chased these malcontents into the river. Alas, nobody could remember who was still playing, but, well, wasn't everybody a winner? That was a bit of excitement, wasn't it? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Yes. Our producer did a pretty swell job for a fan, don't you think, eh?
Well, wasn't that exciting? I do wish you could be here, dear viewers. Well, it looks like somebody's having a party in the visitors' gallery. There are so many happy, excited people there. So many. Perhaps somebody ought to check in and, well, make sure that they're not breaking anything. People tend to get carried away sometimes, don't they? Do you know what makes a party even better? Why, joy, of course. Yes, I bet we'd all have an even better time if somebody would just flood the visitors' gallery with joy, right? You can never be too careful. Any time now. Yes, just fire up an old ventilation system and spread the joy all around. Just like old Scrooge at Christmas. Yeah. And wouldn't we all love a nice Christmas turkey about now? You know, almost anything to be a Christmas turkey, with enough joy. Seriously, if somebody would just do whatever it is that you do to turn on the joy in the ventilators. What's the... Nice to hear that lovely joy gas hissing through the ventilator.
Under your smile.
No one really wants that little silence.
Don't be afraid, all you gotta do is run. 'Cause when we were young,
Right, everybody took nice.
we just a child and we start to all we do is smile. Let's try a stranger on for a while. Something could change for a brand new start. Hide all the raindrops under your tongue. They're only tears. There's nothing to fear. When your love comes round, we've only begun. We can walk down by the beach, just you and me. We've got life underneath our feet, happy as can be. Can you help me please? 'Cause I'm down here on my knees. Only your love rescue me. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
And that was a peek at the exciting new game, We Happy Few. And it's all set in our very own city, Wellington Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have with us here in the studio the creative director of We Happy Few. Please welcome Mr. Guillaume Prevost.
Thanks for having me on the show, Jack.
Tell me, Gwillem, why make a game all about us?
Well, we like England.
Yes?
We like the 60s.
Oh, yes?
We love dystopia.
Dystopia? More like utopia, because, well, let's face it, we're all so happy here. Do you know the secret behind the famous Wellington Wells smile? Well, it's the miraculous little pill ingeniously called joy. And it helps us forget anything bad that might have happened to us. And life is just wonderful every day.
Yeah, so back in the war, when the Germans invaded England and...
What an imagination this fellow has. What an imagination. Of course, none of us had to do anything terrible when the Germans were here. No, 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 no. At least, I can't remember anything. Can you?
Right, so as the player, you're not actually taking joy. You're off your meds. You're trying to escape the city before it all comes crashing down on you.
That sounds awful. Why would anybody stop taking their happy pills? Do you know what we call people who don't take their joy? Downers, Jason. And do you know what we do with downers? They give them a jolly good thrashing until they take their joy. That's what we do.
In the game, you actually play as a downer. And as you roam around the city, you get to explore its lore and history. And you discover how it got to be the way that it is.
I believe you brought a clip.
That's right, we brought a clip.
Roll the clip.
Clip, clip.
I remember now. You came back from the station. The only one.
You don't think they hurt him, Percy?
The Germans aren't animals, you know. They just wanted to make sure we stay quiet. And we did. Spot of tea.
Funny man.
You see, the people in We Happy Few aren't zombies. They just have peculiar expectations about how you should be. So if you walk down the street, smiling at everyone and wishing them a lovely day for it, everything will be perfectly fine. In a way, it's like hiding in plain sight. But if you do things that gamers normally do, like breaking into someone's home or wielding a bloody cricket bat on the street, the people are going to get very upset.
Yes, that is something that we frown upon here. Mm-hmm.
Now, you see, the problem is if you don't break the rules, you're probably going to starve. You are going to starve. You're definitely starving.
And if you do break the rules, people will beat you to a bloody pulp, won't they?
Which is why, as a last resort, you can always take a pill.
Well, why not as a first resort? Everybody loves it.
Jack, you'll overdose.
Well, what's wrong with a little overdose? I mean, so you forget where everything is, but then, brilliant, you've got a brand new town to explore.
When you die, and in We Happy Few, you'll die a lot, we generate a brand new city for you from scratch. From the topology of the terrain to the road arteries and the houses that fill up those networks, and the people that live in them, we generate a brand new journey for you to experience each time you start a new game.
Gwyneth, why don't you make a game all about the wonderful citizens of Wellington Wells beating downers senseless, you know, and then cramming joy down their throat, eh?
Cheer up, you bastard!
Yes.
Take it from Jack Worthing. That's me. We're talking smash hit. Anything else you'd like to tell our audience?
Yes, actually. We worked really hard on this game, and we're always on the lookout for more feedback. So if you like the project, or you want to see more of Uncle Jack, come join us. Help us make this game.
And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Geoffrey Porpoise, the creative director of We Happy Few. Stay tuned for my cooking show. That tastes amazing. What is it? This is Jack Worthing wishing you another fabulous day in Wellington Wells. First time in the telly?
Yes.
You were a bit stiff at first, but I think you warmed up and I think you did really well.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay,
Good job.
thank you. I really like those trousers. Be on my stool. If anybody needs me.
And now, it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And today's first letter is from Charles Hawtrey of St. James Parade. Dear Uncle Jack, I always get eliminated early in Simon Says. It's so frustrating because I love Simon Says and I don't get to play very much of it before I get confused and I'm out. What can I do? Well, Charles, I'm so glad you care about Simon Says. It's one of my favorite games, as you probably know. In fact, sometimes I wish someone would come and be the announcer so I could come to Hamlin and play Simon Says. Say, what a lovely idea. Why don't you come here and I'll go there? Ah, yes, but that doesn't solve your problem, does it? How can you enjoy Simon Says better? Well, I can't promise you a way to be less confused. After all, a bit of confusion is normal when you're taking your joy, and you don't want to get down on your joy, do you? No, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. But look, just because you're out doesn't mean you can't keep playing. Just go to the sidelines and keep playing. After all, no one's going to arrest you for continuing to wave your arms around when I say wave your arms around, eh? I mean, when I say Simon Says move your arms around, right? Good. Well, I hope that's helpful, Charles, and thank you very much for writing. Here's another letter from Mrs. Gillian Overshaw of St. Giles Crescent. Mrs. Overshaw writes, Dear Uncle Jack, I found the most peculiar thing in my garden. Perhaps you can help me identify it. It has the general shape of a garden gnome. That is, it is short and squat and has a rounded, pointy top, just like a gnome's pointy hat, but it's smooth and metal and nothing is painted on it. What is it? Should I make it into a lamp? If I get the hat off, it would make a perfect umbrella stand. I think I can get the hat off if I heat up the bottom part in the fireplace. What do you think? Oh, well, Mrs. Overshaw, I think what you might have here is an unexploded artillery shell. So, no, my dear, I would not particularly recommend heating it up in the fireplace. In fact, I would recommend not touching your garden gnome any further. Especially, do not drop it or drop anything on it. Now, if any of the heroes of the Home Army are listening to this broadcast, and I know some of you are, would you mind dropping by Mrs. Gillian Overshaw's place at 25 St. Giles Crescent and help her in disposing of this rather peculiar garden gnome? Thank you. There's a good chap. Well, this one is from Mrs. Susan Brimble of Northumberland Passage. Dear Mr. Worthing. Oh, Susan. There's no need to be so formal. You can call me Jack, or Uncle Jack. But don't call me Mr. Worthing, because that's my father. And definitely don't call me Mrs. Worthing. Anyway, dear Mr. Worthing, my husband stays a really long time in the bath. He comes home after work and immediately runs a bath. And he stays in it until it's time for dinner. Sometimes he even stays in there after I tell him it's time for dinner. Last night, I even brought him his dinner in the bath, and he left it there on the side of the sink. What's a wife to do? Well, Susan, or Sue. May I call you Sue? I'd like to think I can call you Sue. Susan, I'm not a doctor. I only play one on TV. But I do know some doctors, and I asked them about your husband. They think your husband might just need a little more joy in his life. He seems to be trying to soak it in through his skin, and, well, that takes a very long time, and it'll turn him into a prune. So please be sure that your husband pops a joy or two when he wakes up, and a joy or two before he goes to bed, and I think you'll be seeing a lot more of them in a considerably drier state. There are very few problems that joy won't make better. All right, Susie? Good. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for more cheery answers to your questions about your life in Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon.
And now it's time for Famous Britons, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, interviews some of our more celebrated countrymen from history. Now today, we have in our studio Her Majesty Queen Mary, fondly known to history as Bloody Mary for massacring Protestants and marrying a Spaniard.
And don't confuse me with Mary, Queen of Scots, either. I'll be very cross.
Ah, no, of course not, Your Majesty.
She was an idiot.
And your sister Elizabeth had her beheaded, didn't she?
Jack, that vixen Elizabeth. Do you know, I should have had her head cut off. But I didn't, because I'm a kind and merciful person. By the way, Jack, are you Catholic?
Actually, I'm Anglican, like most people here.
Oh, dear. I think we better put you down for a beheading.
After the interview, perhaps?
You could convert.
That sounds much more jolly.
Oh, dear.
You sound disappointed.
Well, Jack, you've no idea how a good beheading can cheer one up.
Well, I don't know about that. Have you tried joy?
Joy? What's that?
Well, it's this marvelous pill that makes you forget all the bad things and feel wonderful about everything else.
Jack, what rubbish. What kind of queen is happy all the time? Do you know, the few times I was happy, I barely cut anyone's head off at all.
Well, surely there's more to life than just beheading people.
Well, we did try beheading goats for a while, but, well, it wasn't quite the same, was it?
Well, what about fun and family and love?
I am married to King Philip of Spain.
Ah, well, you're in a bit of a jam then, aren't you?
Well, fortunately, I'm dead.
Well, that is one way to solve one's problems, isn't it?
Jack's been lovely chatting, but I really must be off. Someone's saying my name 3 times into a mirror.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Her Majesty Queen Mary. If only she'd had joy, she might not have beheaded quite so many people. Now ask your doctor if joy is right for you. Of course it is. Next week on Famous Britons, I'll be interviewing St. Thomas a Becket. I hear he's turbulent. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in later for more Uncle Jack. Welcome to Strange Foreign Customs, the show where Jack Worthing, that's me, tells you all about the bizarre and ridiculous things people do in other countries. Let's start with Thorroblot. It's an Icelandic festival where you eat disgusting food. Yes, pressed pickled ram testicles, seal flippers, whale blubber, and my favourite, fermented shark. You must be wondering, how do you go around preparing that? Well, you see, you let it rot in the sand for a few months until it's not poisonous anymore, mostly, and then it smells like pneumonia. And then you hang it up to dry until it's chewy. Now, I don't care how starving I am. I'm not going to eat rotten shark, thank you very much. Of course, everyone knows Santa brings presents. But what happens to the men and women who've been naughty? Coal in their socks, right? Actually, I'd love some coal on a cold night. But in Czechoslovakia, they get a visit from the terrifying Krampus. He carts off evil people to be eaten. Do I have your attention now? Now, I know you've all been good this year, and if you haven't, well, I don't want to hear about it. But wouldn't it be fun to dress up as a Krampus and scare wicked people? Now, when I was traveling in Mexico back in, well, I can't remember when, but I found the most enchanting, strange custom. It's called a piñata. And we have one right here. Here he is. It's a large, colourful, paper-mache sculpture, you see, and it's filled with sweets. And you're supposed to smash it until all the sweets come out, and it turns out the custom isn't Mexican at all. It's Spanish, and originally the sculptures are made of clay pots. Wouldn't that be fun? Smashing a clay pot full of treats? You know, it's sort of the reverse of what you do with downers. Smash them until you can get the joy into them. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again soon for more Uncle Jack. And now it's time for I Hear You, the show where Jack Worthing, that's me,
answers your letters and questions about our life in beautiful Wellington Wells. This one is from Richard Starkey of Biddleston Road. Dear Uncle Jack, is it true there are blind albino mole people living beneath our fair city? That's what my friends say. I thought I saw one too, but I wasn't sure, as we'd all had a bit too much to drink, and my memory, of course, is a bit fuzzy. Dear Richard, of course there aren't mole people. This isn't London. There are no ancient catacombs or old bomb shelters underneath our streets. And of course the Wellington Under is completely blocked up. And human beings have not suddenly grown claws to make their own tunnels through the dirt, thank goodness. What an imagination your friend has. Now, of course, there are the poor benighted wastrels in the Garden District, which is reason enough not to go there if you need a reason. Not to mention the unexploded bombs, the rusty scraps of metal and holes that you can fall into. And I don't need to tell you about how dangerous it is outside the walls. I wouldn't even think about going there. But you can be perfectly sure that absolutely no one is moving around underneath the pavement. Well, I'm glad that's settled. This one is from John Lydon of Benwell Road. Dear Jack. Well, I guess he isn't the sort of fellow to cry uncle, Mr. Lydon? Dear Jack, there's a stranger in my house who looks just like my wife. And she says she's my wife too. What has been done with my real wife, and who did this to me? Your help is much appreciated in this matter. Well, it looks like Mr. Lydon has been experiencing one of the odd side effects of joy. Now, it does happen from time to time. It's called Capgras delusion, and it's not unheard of. Mr. Lydon, if you're listening, go see a doctor. They may be able to adjust your dose or give you an analog. And if anyone who's listening that actually knows Mr. Lydon, who lives on Benwell Road, do inform a nearby doctor that Mr. Lydon might need a visit. I'm sure everything will come out roses. And remember, by the way, don't hesitate to go see a doctor if you need any medical attention. They'll fix up that cut right away. And they always check your joy level and make sure that it's where it should be. Good. This one is from Edwin Powell of Hoylake. Dear Mr. Worthing. Oh, Edwin. Let's be friends, shall we? Actually, I'm just going to edit this one a bit. Dear Uncle Jack, I was cleaning out my garage and I came up with a big pile of newspapers from the war. Yes, well, I'm not going to read the rest of this letter because I know exactly what you should do. What do you do with a bunch of old newspaper? Well, it's the perfect thing to use to light a fire in your fireplace. The older and drier the paper, the better. Now, I wouldn't recommend using it to wrap fish. First of all, because, well, I haven't seen a fish in years. And second, because you're not a fish shop. And third of all, the paper does get a bit crumbly and you don't want that on your food. So just burn it all up in a cold night and you'll be glad you did. Yes, what a strange bunch of letters we have today. I wonder if we ought to quit while we're ahead. All right, we'll give it one more go, shall we? Ah, it smells like roses. Dear Uncle Jack. Yes, I forgot to mention who it's from. This is the... Take another whiff. Yes, definitely rose. I wasn't mistaken. It's from Susan Jane Ballion of Chislehurst Vicarage. And she writes, Dear Uncle Jack, I keep getting lost in my own neighbourhood. I've lived there all my life, but lately it seems like they're moving the buildings around on me. It's most disconcerting. I'm not old or anything, and I haven't been hit on the head, at least not that I remember. They're not actually moving the buildings, are they? That's what she asked. Dear Susie, may I call you Susie? I think it suits you. Dear Susie, I'm glad to say that you clearly are taking your joy. Joy is what helps us forget the past and move into the radiant future. And getting lost is just a mild side effect. Fortunately, there's an easy solution. Carry a map. Actually, in fact, carry one in each pocket. That way you don't have to remember which pocket your map is in. You know, I'm so delighted when I can so easily help a listener. And here we are. Yes, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for more advice and news from our listeners and watchers. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. See you soon. Wakey, wakey, everyone. It's another lovely day in... Wakey, wakey, everyone. It's another lovely day in Wellington Wells. Now, in case we have any visitors today, here are a few tips that will help you get along with everyone. And the most important one, of course, is don't forget to take your joy. And drink plenty of water, too. Fortunately, there's joy in the water. And eat plenty of nutritious food. And may I be the first to recommend our local delicacy, veal-meat. Of course, be very careful to stay away from downers. Fortunately, most of them live in the Garden District, and, well, no decent person goes there. It's full of dangerous maniacs and lunatics. If someone's dressed in rags, tell them to go back where they belong, and obey all official signs. They're for your safety and protection. Make friends with your fellow citizens. Talk to them, visit them. Wellies love a friendly guest. And we Wellies do love our games. It's important to stay young at heart, so use our playgrounds. Well, after all, if you don't, who on earth will? And obey police officers. They're there to protect you. Remember, they're the only ones who are allowed out at night. Wellington Wells is a delightful place. If you just do like everybody else and you take your joy, you'll have a splendid time. And if you don't, well, one less mouth to feed, eh? Oh. And now it's time for Famous Britons, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, interviews some of our most celebrated countrymen. Today, we have in our studio His Majesty King George III. Your Majesty, how are you feeling today?
Mad, really?
Well, is it us who's mad, or is it the entire world?
Oh, no, Jack.
No, it's me. Absolutely me. Do you know, in fact, it's got to my attention, some of my subjects affectionately refer to me as Mad King George. Still, you accomplished quite a bit in your reign, didn't you?
Yes, I have, Jack, and I'm glad to talk about some of the more serious things of my reign.
I grew smashing carrots. Really did. In fact, I was known as Farmer George. But those damned rabbits, Jack, always eating my carrots.
You beat the French?
And you know, in those days, they weren't even always orange. No. They were mostly sort of red and white and sometimes a beige.
The French?
No, Jack. The carrots! Do try to keep up, man.
But the French, yes, we did beat them twice.
Certainly. And, well, you're famous for giving the Americans their liberty, eh? Oh, Jack. Those pesky Americans. Any idiot can grow vegetables in the New World. You just chop down a tree and there's your farm. I mean, try doing that in the plot of land that's been found for 2,000 years. Ah, good luck to you, man. But Jack, the damned rabbits were always eating my lettuce. Well, you do sound a little upset. But I'm mad. I'm absolutely mad. Mad King George, barking. Have you tried joy? Joy? What's that? Well, it's this marvelous pill that makes you forget everything and think of all the wonderful things in life. Well, I wish I'd had some of that. I might not have been quite so mad. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. His Majesty King George III. If only he'd had joy, he might not have gone mad at all. Ask your doctor if joy is right for you. Of course it's right for you. Next week, on Famous Britons, I'll be interviewing King Arthur. Do you know he's planning a comeback? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in later for more Uncle Jack. And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, we all know what to do about the blahs, don't we? If you're feeling a little bit blue, here's an easy fix. Pop another joy. You can't overdose on happiness. Being in Wellington Wells means never having to feel sorry for yourself. But there are some ailments of the body, and though you might feel perfectly happy, you might be having trouble keeping your food down. And you might be having trouble keeping your food in. There's a surprisingly nasty little disease called cholera. Yes, its main symptoms are vomiting and diarrhea. You wind up doing so much of both that, in the end, you've nothing to throw up except clear liquid and nothing to come out the other end except a sort of rice water. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to show you a rather ghastly photograph, but it's all in a good cause. I hope that's not what you're seeing in the pot. But if you are, then someone in your house may have cholera. Now, cholera is a bit dangerous, but it has a very simple treatment. In the past, you see, we all used to take all sorts of pills for it. But it turns out that the most important thing is to drink lots and lots of water. Yes, you can lose 10 to 20 quarts of fluid a day from cholera. In fact, people with cholera can wind up with wrinkled hands like they spent too long in the tub. The cure for that is easy. Drink like a fish. Don't be afraid to drink 10 to 20 quarts of water per day. Ideally, of course, you'll mix half a teaspoon of salt, 6 teaspoons of sugar, and a little bit of mashed banana in each quart of water. But if you don't have sugar or banana, and who does, the salt's important too. And here's where you may need a bit of help. If you're drinking that much water, you don't need to take any additional joy pills, and you may find yourself forgetting a thing or two. Now, if there are other people in your household, please make sure that they know not to let you take any more joy pills for a while and to make sure you keep drinking lots and lots of water. Now, how do you ensure that you don't get cholera? Well, be sure to only drink pure water. Now, there's absolutely no truth to any rumour that the water in Wellington Wells is contaminated by bacteria. However, you can never be too careful. So, if you can, if anyone on your street is having a lot of tummy trouble, you should boil all water, especially if it's been exceptionally rainy. I mean, not your ordinary, wonderful English rain, but severe thunderstorms. If your gas isn't working, just filtering your water through a cloth is quite helpful in reducing the bacteria in the water. Why don't you just go down the pub? The beer is definitely safe to drink. And if you're caring for someone with a lot of tummy trouble, be sure to wash your hands lots. And if you can, get some bleach. Be sure to bleach the bed sheets. It's a very good idea. And if you can't, well, then hanging them out on a sunny day until they're quite warm and dry will work wonders, because nothing disinfects like sunlight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask a doctor. You know doctors, they're always looking out for you. And remember, no matter what you do, make sure you're taking enough joy. There's no excuse anymore for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time when we'll hear the good news about leprosy. It's slow, and it's not at all true that your limbs just fall off. So don't worry if you're losing sensation in your extremities. You'll probably die of something else first. This is Dr. Jack Worthing saying, stay well, 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 and don't forget to take your drug. Goodbye.
Hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You know, you can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. And I'm here to show you what. Now, today we're going to talk about the wonderful world of flour extenders and bread substitutes. Of course, a lot of you are already using flour substitutes, and bread doesn't have to be made of wheat flour. Ground barley, for example, is scrumptious. And why wouldn't it be? Barley is the key ingredient in beer. Ha ha ha! Now I've got your attention, haven't I? Making beer is like making tea. You pour hot water over partly sprouted barley grains. But after all this beer tea, it's called wort, by the way, after it's been poured off to ferment into beer, well, there are bags and bags full of used barley. Now, can you believe that people used to feed spent mash to cows? What a waste! I mean, of course, it's not as yummy as it used to be, but there are still a few calories left. All you need to do is grind the used barley into flour in the kind of hand mill that you used to use for coffee beans. Now, if you've already sold your hand mill, barley can be pounded into flour with an ordinary mortar. Now, of course, that'll use and require a lot more elbow grease, like this, but it'll really build up those muscles. Now, once you've got your barley flour, you just jolly well mix it in with wheat flour. If you can get it, that is. See, flour provides the sticky gluten that holds bread together. So the more flour you can mix in, the better. Ideally, proportions are 1 cup of barley to 1 cup of flour. However, if you really like the taste of barley, you can always mix in 2 cups to 1 cup of flour. It'll have a more crumbly, more cake-like consistency. I love a crumble cake. Don't you? You can always eat it in a bowl with a spoon. After all, it's going to look the same when it comes out the other end, isn't it? Well, so much for used barley. Now, if you can still get your hands on a potato flour is another excellent extender for your flour supplies. Very important. You must slice your potatoes as thin as possible, as if you're making crisps. In fact, if you've got oil to fry them in, you can just skip making flour and go right to making crisps. Machine oil will do just as well as fat or grease. But if bread is what you're about, then slice your potato slices until you can break them with your hand. If your oven works, you can dry them in the oven, but a fireplace is just as good. Just make sure you dry them and don't actually cook them. The key is that you don't want a lot of water in your potato flour. Just move them a little bit away from the fire. Now, I'm not actually going to slice this potato because the drying process takes several hours and, well, we haven't got all day, have we? Oh, yes. I've got plans to you later, Mr. Potato. You've got a date with a hot pot full of boiling oil. Some people seem to think that sawdust is a good flour extender. Well, they're certainly using their English imaginations, aren't they? We've always been good at coming up with clever solutions to just about any problem, eh? Certainly easy to get sawdust. You just saw some wood. And yes, sawdust will indeed fill you up. It's very slow to digest, which makes for a full tummy all day long. Just make sure it's powdery and not too rough, or it'll irritate your stomach. Do bear in mind that sawdust has surprisingly little nutritional value. Man cannot live on sawdust alone. If you're looking for a better use of sawdust, it's handy to use as a mulch in your garden. It really helps aerate your soil. And if you have a typical Hamlin clay under your house, a bit of sawdust is just the thing to mix in to lighten up that soil. And the same goes for wheat chaff. Fills the tummy, but after a while you'll need to eat something nutritious. Best to dig it into your victory garden where it'll do your vegetables a world of good. Listen to me, this isn't my gardening show, is it? Let's get back to flour extenders.
Remember, if you're harvesting wild seeds, they won't contain any joy, and neither will potatoes unless you've watered them yourself from water out of the tap. And especially sawdust and chaff, they don't have any joy at all. So remember to adjust your dose accordingly. And bear in mind, if sawdust or chaff is all you have, just up your dose of joy a little. They'll fill your tummy, and you won't be at all upset that you're a little bit hungry. You might even forget that you haven't eaten at all. But just get back to real food as soon as you can, and you'll be right as rain. Oh, I'm afraid I've come to the end of our time. This is Uncle Jack wishing you an amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tune in next time, when we explore what to do with meat that's gone a bit off. See you soon. It's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, sit down next to the fire, if you've got one, and wrap a blanket around yourselves, and I'll tell you something that happened. Tonight's story is called The Pied Piper, and some people say it actually took place, and some people say it actually took place in our very own Hamelin. But who knows? The past is deep and dark and filled with mists and strange things that move in the night. It's best not to go into it. Strange things happen in fairy tales, but even stranger and nastier things happen in the past. Thank goodness we're not living then, and our days are bright and filled with joy. Once upon a time, there was a town called Hamelin. It wasn't the name of the town. That's just what it was called. It was a happy town, full of rich merchants and hard-working smiths and beautiful girls and jovial lads. But awful things can happen to good people. And little did the people of Hamelin know, but dark times were coming. There was a hard winter when wolves came down from the hills and attacked the sheep. And the wolves brought crows which would wait for the sight of rotting meat and then descend in swarms. And some said, though no one ever saw it, that the crows did not always wait for death. And some said it was not only wolves who were murdering animals out in the fields. The crows knew, but they only said caw. But if the winter was hard, the summer was harder still. For the summer brought rats. They came onto the beaches from a ship that had sailed from France. At first there were just a few, but soon there were hundreds of rats, then thousands of them. They swarmed into the town, and they said to themselves in their rat speech, "Here is a rich town. Let us eat everything we can." So they ate the grain, they chewed their way into cupboards to eat the cheese, they even ate chickens when they could quarter them. Nothing was safe. The villagers, well, they were at their wits' end. If you can kill one rat, you can set traps for 12 rats. But who can kill 1,000 rats? As long as there are 2 rats, in weeks there'll be dozens, and in weeks after that, there will be thousands again. The villagers were in despair. But one day, a tall man came to town. He was a piper. He played a pipe. So they called him the Pied Piper, for he wore a coat of many colours. He was not very good at playing the pipes, but when the villagers told him to stop playing, he told them, "Although I'm not very good at playing to entertain people, I know what to play to rats." Well, who would play music for rats, you ask? Well, the piper never explained, but he offered the town to pipe their rats away. He said, "It'll cost you a great deal of money. I promise you, when it's all over, there will be no more rats." He even promised that if he left a single rat, they need pay him nothing. Now, the villagers of Hamelin were not poor, but they liked their money. Still, they thought they would never have to pay the piper. I mean, after all, who could possibly rid the town of every last rat? So they agreed to the piper's terms. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Will the town get rid of their rats? And how will they pay the piper? It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy how it ends. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all, and see you tomorrow. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. I haven't finished the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, have I? Well, gather round the telly, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you how it ends. We last left the town of Hamlin filled with rats. Horrible rats, eating them out of house and home. But a piper in a motley coat has promised to get rid of every last rat by playing music to them. But he expects a lot of money, and they've agreed to pay for it. What will happen? The next day, the piper came into town, and this time he had a different pipe with him. It was a tiny pipe, made of horn, and no one could even hear the music that it played. But soon, out of every barn and every field, out of every kitchen and every storehouse, all of the rats of the town swarmed towards the Pied Piper. They came out of the church, they came out of the town hall, they came up out of the well, they came out of the cupboards, they came out of the haystacks. Soon, the entire village square was covered in rats, until you could not see a bare patch of dirt. And then, the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forest in a direction that no one thought had a path. No one knew exactly where he went, for no one wanted to go anywhere near the enormous swarm of rats. Well, the villagers celebrated. They took their cheese out of their strong boxes, and they took their bread out of their stone ovens. Everything they'd been afraid of the rats eating, they took out. But as the villagers were settling down to drinking, the Pied Piper returned, and he told the people, "And now it is time to pay the piper." Well, the villagers, they were wicked people. They asked the piper if he killed all the rats, and he promised that they'd never see the rats again. At this, the villagers were delighted. "Why should we pay the piper?" they asked each other. "The rats are gone." They told him to be off, and when he demanded his money, they beat him until he was bleeding, and they threatened to throw him in the well until he drowned. The piper left, and they thought that they'd never see him again. But the next morning, the piper was back. This time, he had a very large, long pipe made out of long, long bone. You could still see the bruises on his face as he walked into the village square. But he did not seem afraid. He did not seem like a man who could ever be afraid. The villagers gathered to warn him off. Hadn't he had enough punishment? Be off with him. Then he began to play his long bone pipe. The sounds were so low that no one could hear him. But they were all struck dumb, and they found that they could not move to strike the piper, nor could they leave. And out of every house came every villager who was not already in the town square, out of the church, and out of the town hall, and out of the pub, and out of the baker's, and out of the cheese shop. Even the lame smith limped from his forge to the town square. And then the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forests in a direction that no one thought had a path. And the villagers all followed him. Only the lame smith couldn't keep up, although he tried his best. And it's a good thing, too, for otherwise we'd never know what happened. For the villagers disappeared into the dark woods. The smith lost all track of them. Among the trees he could not tell what direction the piping was, and soon he couldn't hear it at all for the songs of the birds and the whisper of the trees. He lay down, and he wept for a day and a night, for the music had so moved him that he wished he'd been fast enough to follow it. The smith came out of the forest. He came to an inn, and there he told the story of the villagers of Hamlin, and he waited a year and a day for them to come back. And on the 366th day, he hanged himself. The town of Hamlin rotted in the rain until nothing was left of it but misshapen mounds that strangers thought must be from ancient times. The villagers, they were never seen again. Nor was the piper, though perhaps he was. For there are villages in old books that are not there now, and who knows if they too vanished in the woods to the piper's tune. Who knows if this is a true story or just a fairy tale? But somehow, you know that it must be true, because who could invent such a horror? That's the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. What a wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed telling it. And remember, stay at home at night or terrible things may happen in the dark. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for another bedtime story. Good night all. See you tomorrow. Hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You know, you can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. And I'm here to show you what. Now today, we're going to talk about the wonderful world of edible weeds. You might think the orach plant is just a roadside weed, but our friend Natropilx patula bears thousands of seeds which you can gather in the autumn, and they'll keep all year long, if you haven't already snaffled them up. Yummy! Now grind them as you would any other kind of cornmeal, and you can blend them into your flour supply. You can also use them to thicken your soup. And don't waste the rest of the plant. You can eat the young leaves in salads, and you can cook up the old leaves like spinach. Goosefruit salad and orach bread. What a filling meal. And it's all free. Yes. That is a nettle. Now, who wants to eat a nettle, really? Well, gorillas, for one. They love nettles. They eat thistles and nettles every chance they get. But I don't suppose you're a gorilla. And if you are, well, you're hiding it very well, and bravo for you. Of course, artichokes are basically monstrously large thistles. But you already know about artichokes. This isn't an artichoke. It's not even a thistle. It's a nettle. Urtica dioica is a tall plant with a thick root we call a rhizome. And the whole plant is just packed with vitamins. In fact, it's quite medicinal. You can use it to treat sore muscles, eczema, arthritis, gout, and anemia. Though I doubt any of you have the gout, eh? That's the one thing about our present thrifty lifestyle as sailors, eh? Now, be careful, because this is called a stinging nettle for a reason. It's got lots of sharp, stinging, tiny hairs. And each of these tiny hairs is hollow and contains a drop of formic acid. That's what ants bite you with. And when the hair pierces your skin, it injects the acid. You'll have an annoying, burning sensation that can last for minutes or even days. And you won't have got it from anything fun, will you? No. So, best thing to do is to wear gloves. If you do get stung, try rubbing the sting with the root of the plant. Might make the itch go away, and in any event, it'll make you look and feel rather clever. Then you're going to do one of two things once you've harvested it. You can cook it, or you can dry it. You probably don't like eating your vegetables dry, unless you're a cow, in which case you're hiding it very well. Bravo, you. And do let me know where you live so I can eat you up. Now, what you ought to do is cook it as you would cook spinach. In fact, it tastes a great deal like spinach. And did I mention that it's packed with vitamins? Yes, I did. Well, it is. You can also put it in soups and stews. The best leaves are the young, light green ones, but beggars can't be choosers. You can even make it into tea. But everyone knows you can eat weeds, and who hasn't eaten a yummy dandelion salad? Clover has a lovely lemony taste. You can eat it raw, but like all proper English food, it's much better if you boil it for at least half an hour. Chicory is best known as tea, but you can eat the whole plant. The young leaves you can eat raw, and the flowers make a great snack. And if you put the roots in a stew, it'll add flavour, bulk, vitamins, and calories. Sheep sorrel is a common weed like acid soil, like your common English bog. Don't eat too much of it, it's full of oxalates. But the leaves have a very nice tart flavour. Just remember, all of these plants are edible, especially if you boil them. And if you're not sure about a plant, Just put it in a soup. A little of the wrong will almost never kill you, as long as you mix it in with lots of good stuff. Just eat a little at first, and if it doesn't upset your stomach, eat a little bit more the next time. Soon you'll be chowing down like a cow. But you're not a cow, or I'm coming to your house for dinner. Ah, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. This is Uncle Jack wishing you an amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tune in next time when we explore the fabulous world of edible insects. Did you know you can eat maggots? They're nutritious and scrumptious. And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, we all know how to be our mental best, don't we? If you're feeling a bit listless and down, there's a simple and easy answer. Pop a joy. You can't be too happy now, can you? Being a citizen of Wellington Wells means never having to feel sorry for yourself. But this is the show where we talk about being your physical best. If you're feeling a bit sick, it's nice to be happy, but you still don't want to drop dead even if you're smiling all the way, do you? Well, actually, it's not a bad way to go, I suppose. But let's talk about coughing. England is a drafty, wet country, and we all get colds from time to time. When you think about it, jams love the wet, and they stay fresh in the cold. So, if you're coughing from time to time, well, there's nothing to worry about, and there's nothing to do about it either. Now, some people get very worried if they're coughing up blood. And indeed, yes, that might be a sign of something nasty like cancer or pulmonary embolism, things that we don't have any way to treat anymore. Of course, it could just be a sign of bronchitis. If you've had a nasty cough for a while and you're just coughing and coughing and coughing and wheezing, then you probably do have bronchitis. So see if you can get your hands on some old cough drops, or if you haven't any left, drink plenty of tea, rest as much as you can, and try not to cough, and it'll probably eventually go away. But coughing up blood is, like it or not, also a traditional sign of tuberculosis. Yes, tuberculosis is a nasty, infectious disease that we just about eliminated from England before the war. Guess who brought it back to us? I won't tell you, but they weren't mermen, and they weren't called Herman, and they didn't come to preach a sermon. Yes, well, some of them were called Herman. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. How do you know if it is tuberculosis? Well, another symptom is night sweats. If your sheets are soaking wet in the morning, well, then you've had night sweats. And we know you're not having night sweats from worrying, are you? Not if you're taking your joy. Fever is another symptom. But by itself, it could be just a bad cold. But with night sweats and coughing up blood, well, you might start to wonder. Of course, the most famous sign of tuberculosis is losing weight. Victims of tuberculosis waste away. That's why it's called consumption. That's why it used to be called consumption. Now, if you're not getting enough to eat, of course, you're losing weight, so don't worry. But if you are lucky enough to be getting enough to eat, and you're still losing a lot of weight, and you're coughing up blood, well, then you very well have tuberculosis. What can you do if you have tuberculosis? Well, the most important thing you can do is to make sure that no one else gets it. Don't cough at anyone, don't spit on the street, and wash your hands often with soap. Get yourself to a doctor as soon as you can, and they'll be sure to get you to a place where you can be taken care of properly and that you won't infect anyone else. What if you suspect someone close to you has tuberculosis? Be sure to tell the nearest doctor. They'll know how to be sure if your husband or wife or friend has it and what to do about it. Don't keep it a secret, or you might catch it too. Be very careful with any handkerchiefs or clothes or sheets that someone might have coughed blood on. They should be washed thoroughly with soap and bleach if you can get it, and they should be hung out to dry at least until a warm, sunny day dries them out, because nothing disinfects like sunlight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask a doctor. You know doctors, they're always looking out for you. And remember, be your own doctor. No matter what you do, be sure you're taking enough joy. There's no more excuses for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow when we'll see if there's any truth to the rumors about leprosy. I'll tell you a secret. They're all false. This is Dr. Jack Worthing, and this is my prescription. Get plenty of sleep and exercise, and you'll be well, well, well. Goodbye. Well, look at you. What are you doing? Yes, that's right. I'm talking to you. What on earth do you think you're doing? Are you where you should be? Are you doing what you should be doing? Of course you are. Let's face it. There's nowhere we'd rather be and nothing we'd rather be doing than living our lives here and now in Wellington Wells, eh? We're all so fortunate to be proud Englishmen and women, because no matter what we've been through, we're all alive and happy, and so many others are not. I just want you to meditate on that essential fact of our existence. This is Uncle Jack saying, it's easy to smile when you've so much to be thankful for, but just because it's easy, doesn't mean that it's not true. And now, it's once again time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. Let's see what Rosalie Millay Scott has to say. Wait a second. Do I detect a hint of roses? Oh, Rosalie. If this is a love letter, it's going to be very embarrassing when I read it out in the air. Dear Uncle Jack. That's better, isn't it? Whose uncle are you? Are you my uncle? I don't remember having an uncle. Dear Rosalie, oh, how I wish I were your uncle, because you seem like a lovely girl. But I'm not biologically anybody's uncle. I just feel like I'm an uncle, and many of your fellow viewers feel like I'm their uncle too. So it just sort of grew like dandelions. And you know how difficult it is to uproot dandelions? They just keep growing back, which is lovely because you can eat them. Did you know that? But I digress. The way uncles do, eh? All you need to know, my dear, is that I feel as fond of you as any uncle ever could. And I hope you feel just as fond of me. All right, Rosalie? Good. This one is from... I think it's from... Ah, yes, it's from Dermot Nightingale of Gascoigne House, Upper Borough Walls. Dear Uncle Jack, a few days ago, I saw a bunch of citizens chasing someone down Milk Street. They ran right past me, so naturally I was swept up in the flow, and soon I was chasing the man down the street as well, and I'm pretty sure we caught up with him. But I can't remember what happened next. I think we beat him, but I can't remember if we killed him or not. Do you know who he was, and did we kill him? Do you know why we were chasing him? Well, dear Dermot, I don't think you should worry about this sort of thing. If a whole bunch of citizens were chasing someone down the street, I think we can safely say that that someone did something wrong. After all, there's only one of him. There's lots of you, so you win the vote. Anyway, what's past is past. And we've all done things that weren't perfect. Listen, if we spent all our time worrying about the things that we've done, well, we'd never be able to enjoy our day. So feel better. Pop a few extra joy today, and I bet in the morning you won't even remember what you were so upset about. I'm so glad I was able to help. Well, I did so enjoy hearing from all of you, my dear listeners. Yes, I love these letters. This one is from Mr. Fitzloyd Dix of Monmouth Place. Dear Uncle Jack, I haven't been feeling entirely well these past few days. I feel rather tired, and it's hard to get out of bed. So I asked my husband to get this letter for you. Oh dear, I hope this isn't going to be a medical question. I've already called the doctors once today. No, it isn't. I've noticed an odd thing. On the roof across from my bedroom, I've noticed an awful lot of chickens. They just fly up there and watch me through my open window. The peculiar thing is, they're all black with sharp black beaks, and all they do all day is go caw, caw, caw. Why are there chickens on my neighbour's roof? I've never noticed them there before. Dear Mrs. Diggs, I think it's likely that those are not chickens at all, but rather I think they might be crows. Crows are blackbirds that sit on rooftops and caw. Now, they may have noticed that you're not stirring from your bed, and they're there trying to keep you company while you recover. Isn't that sweet of them, eh? But I'm a little bit worried about that open window of yours. You don't want to catch a cold, eh, from the draught? Perhaps you can ask your husband to shut it the next time you see him. And this one is from Cedric Tullett of Oldfield Park. Dear Uncle Jack, this morning I was cleaning up my house and I came across a box of military medals. I'm pretty sure they're my military medals because my father was never in the war because he had a bit of a limp. So they must be mine. I'd like to know what they're for. All I remember during the war was retreating and then the surrender. And then we all took off our uniforms, and that's all I can remember. So how could I have even won one medal? Yes, well, thank you for the very poignant questions, Mr. Tullett. And I, for one, salute you during your service during the war, sir. And I think I can assure you that the next war will be a string of English victories like you've never even imagined. After all, as we all know, the English always win in the end. Good. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. I do hope that you found these letters not only interesting, but useful to you in your own life. Do keep those letters coming. In fact, with Victory Day coming up, please let me know how you're planning to spend the holiday, and the reader with the most amazing plans shall win a prize. Tune in again tomorrow for more cheery answers to your questions about your life in Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. Well, hello there. What exactly are you doing? Yes, you there. This is Uncle Jack talking directly to you. Are you where you belong right now? And are you supposed to be doing that? These are very important questions for all of us. As patriotic citizens of Wellington Wells, it's not enough to just look out for yourself. We all have to look out for each other. And that means asking ourselves these questions every day. Are we where we're supposed to be? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? For if we're all doing our duty, will we preserve and thrive into the future? You never can be too careful. Take it from me, Jack Worthing. Stay where you belong and do what you should be doing, and you never have to worry.
Now everything's better under the sun. Talk. Now everything's better under the sun. Talk in the dark under your smile. Don't be afraid, all you gotta do is run. When we were young, we just a child, and we start to all we do is smile. Let's try a stranger on for a while. Something could change for a brand new start. Hide all the raindrops under your tongue. They're only tears. There's nothing to fear. All you gotta do is smile.
London Bridge has fallen down. It's fallen down. Fallen down. London Bridge has fallen down. Take the keys and lock them up. Yes, go on, do it. Lock them up. Yes, lock them up. Take the keys and lock them up. My fair lady. Everything is quite all right. Sleepy tight. Nighty-night. Everything's out of sight. My fair lady.
What do you do if you're with a downer? Well, if it's you, then just excuse yourself and take your joy right away. You'll be as right as rain in no time. But what if it's not you? Well, the first thing to do is ask the downer, have you had enough joy today? Most sensible people will realize they've forgotten their morning joy. After all, forgetfulness can happen to any of us. In fact, it's a sign you're taking your joy. So remind them and they'll take their joy right away and, yes, problem solved. But what if the person won't take his joy? Well then, you need to step up and do your patriotic duty to your fellow citizen of Wellington Wells. If you can see a policeman or a doctor, simply notify them that there's a downer in the area and yes, they'll take care of the rest. After all, it's their job. But if there are no authorities, you may need to take action yourself. Call your fellow citizens and let them know they've got a downer in their midst. They'll help you chase and subdue the downer and make sure he takes his joy. Once he's recovered his senses, well, you can let him go on his way. And if for any reason he fails to recover, don't feel bad. Sad feelings are contagious, and one bad apple can spoil the lot. Go on your way and have a lovely day.